The massive alien research ship moved slowly through the dark space. Its name was the Harmony of Spheres, and it was the most advanced vessel the Galactic Coalition had ever built. Inside its gleaming halls, Admiral Kexthara studied the star charts with her 6 golden eyes. She was a Vorthan, one of the smartest species in the galaxy, and today she had a very important job to do. 3 months ago, the humans had fought their first real war against the Hegemony Alliance. The Coalition had watched from far away, curious about these new creatures who had just discovered faster-than-light travel the humans had lost badly. Their ships were destroyed, their colonies burned, and their fleets scattered. But the Coalition was very interested in the wreckage they left behind. "Admiral, we are approaching the debris field," announced Communications Officer Valtarix. His blue skin shimmered as he spoke, and his 3 arms moved across the control panels with practiced ease. The human ship was called the USS Defiance. According to our records, it was destroyed exactly 93 days ago. Admiral Kexthara nodded slowly. The Vorthans were known for their careful thinking and love of knowledge. They had spent centuries studying the technology of every species they met. Human technology was still a mystery to them, and mysteries made her curious. What do we know about the human who survived? She asked. Dr. Yalandra, the ship's chief xenobiologist, consulted her datapad. Her tentacles moved in complex patterns as she read. His name is Commander Jake Morrison, age 34. He was found in an escape pod 15 days after the battle. Medical scans show he is uninjured but refuses to speak about what happened to his ship. Has he said anything at all? Only that we should leave the wreckage alone. He seems very calm for someone whose ship was destroyed. Admiral Kexthara found this interesting. Most survivors from space battles were either angry or sad or afraid. But this human seemed different. She had studied many species, and she knew that calm behavior often meant someone was hiding something important. Where is he now? Detention Bay 7. He has been very quiet. He spends most of his time staring out the window at the debris field. The Admiral decided to visit the human before they began their work. She walked through the corridors of her ship, passing scientists and technicians from dozens of different worlds. The Coalition was proud of how many species worked together in peace. They all shared knowledge and helped each other grow stronger. Detention Bay 7 was a comfortable room with a large window. Commander Morrison sat in a chair, looking out at the scattered pieces of his ship. He was smaller than most aliens, with strange hair on his head and skin that looked soft and weak. But his eyes were sharp, and he watched everything with careful attention. "Commander Morrison," Admiral Kexthara said as she entered. "I am Admiral Kexthara. I wanted to speak with you before we begin examining your ship." The human turned to look at her. His face showed no fear, no anger, no sadness, just patience, as if he was waiting for something to happen. "Admiral," he said simply, "I suppose you're going to ask me about our technology. We are curious about human engineering. Your species is new to space travel, but your ship showed some interesting features during the battle." Morrison smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Interesting? That's one word for it. Can you tell us about your ship's design, your weapons, your defensive systems?" "I can tell you one thing," Morrison said, standing up and walking to the window. "You really shouldn't examine the wreckage. Just leave it alone and go home." "Admiral." Kexthara felt annoyed. She had studied thousands of different technologies. She had unlocked the secrets of energy beings and mechanical races. She had helped develop weapons that could destroy entire star systems. One primitive human ship could not possibly be dangerous to study. "Commander, we are not your enemies. We simply want to understand. Knowledge helps all species grow stronger." Morrison looked at her with those sharp eyes. "You think you understand what knowledge means, but some knowledge comes with a price." "What price? You'll find out soon enough." The Admiral left the detention bay feeling frustrated. Humans were clearly more stubborn than she had expected. But this only made her more curious about their technology. She returned to the main laboratory, where her team was preparing for the examination. Chief Engineer Zormalik was already suiting up for the first salvage mission. He was a member of the Cerebral Collective, a species that had replaced most of their organic brains with advanced computers. They were the smartest engineers in the galaxy, able to understand any technology after just a few minutes of study. "Are you ready to begin?" Admiral Kexthara asked. "Yes, Admiral. My preliminary scans show that the debris field contains 847 separate pieces. The largest piece appears to be part of the ship's hull. The smallest pieces are microscopic fragments. What about energy signatures?" "That is unusual. The wreckage shows no power sources, but there are faint energy readings coming from multiple locations. The readings seem to pulse in a regular pattern." Dr. Yolandra looked up from her scanners. "I am detecting organic material throughout the debris. This is strange because the ship was destroyed by plasma weapons. Any biological matter should have been vaporized." "Perhaps their life support systems were more advanced than we thought," the Admiral suggested. "Or perhaps," said a new voice, "you're looking at something you don't understand." Everyone turned to see Commander Morrison standing in the doorway. Two security guards flanked him, but he had requested to watch the examination. The Admiral had agreed, thinking that seeing his ship studied might make him more willing to talk. "Commander, you should not be here," Zormalik said. "This is a scientific operation." "I know exactly what this is," Morrison replied, "and I'm telling you one more time." "Don't touch that wreckage." "Why?" Admiral Kexthara asked. "What are you afraid we will find?" Morrison walked to the large viewing screen that showed the debris field. Pieces of twisted metal floated in the darkness, lit by the ship's powerful lights. Some pieces were large enough to contain entire rooms. Others were small fragments that glittered like stars. "I'm not afraid of what you'll find," he said quietly. "I'm afraid of what will find you." The Admiral had heard enough. She was tired of mysterious warnings and vague threats. Her species had been studying alien technology for thousands of years. They had never encountered anything they could not understand and control. "Begin the salvage operation," she ordered. Zormalik nodded and activated the ship's tractor beam. The beam reached out and gently grabbed the largest piece of wreckage. It was a section of hull plating, about the size of a small building. The metal was dark and scarred, with strange patterns burned into its surface. As the piece was brought into the ship's cargo bay, Dr. Yolandra began her scans. "The metal composition is unlike anything in our databases. It appears to be a combination of steel, titanium, and several elements I cannot identify. The atomic structure is very complex," Zormalik added. "It seems to be organized in layers, like the rings of a tree, but these layers are not natural. They were created artificially." Admiral Kexthara felt excited. This was exactly the kind of discovery that made her love science. "Begin a detailed analysis. I want to know everything about this metal." As the scientists worked, Morrison watched from the observation deck. His calm expression never changed, but Admiral Kexthara noticed that he was gripping the railing very tightly. His knuckles were white with tension. "Something troubles you, Commander?" "You have no idea what you're dealing with," he said. "Human. Warships aren't just machines. They're something more." "What do you mean?" Morrison looked at her directly. "You'll understand soon enough. But by then, it will be too late to stop what you've started." The examination continued through the night. Shift. More pieces were brought aboard, each one carefully studied and catalogued. The coalition scientists worked with the enthusiasm of people who believed they were making history. They had no idea that they were about to discover why even the smartest aliens in the galaxy had learned to fear human technology. The morning shift brought new excitement to the research labs. Admiral Kexthara walked through the corridors of her ship, pleased with the progress her team had made. They had collected 17 pieces of the human wreckage, and each one was more interesting than the last. Chief Engineer Zormalik had been working all night on the largest piece of hull plating. When the Admiral entered his laboratory, she found him staring at a section of the metal with confusion in his electronic eyes. "Admiral," he said, I need to show you something very strange. He led her to a workbench where the piece of human metal lay under bright lights. The surface was covered with burn marks and impact craters, but Zormalik pointed to a specific area that looked different. When I started cutting into this metal 12 hours ago, it was damaged and broken, but look at it now. Admiral Kekstara looked closer. The metal around the cut marks appeared to be healing itself. The edges were growing together and the surface was becoming smooth again. That is impossible, she said. Metal does not heal. I thought so too. But I have been watching it happen. The metal is not just repairing itself. It is learning from my tools. Each time I cut it, it becomes harder to cut. Each time I heat it, it becomes more resistant to heat. Zormalik activated a plasma cutter, the same tool he had used successfully the night before. When he touched it to the metal, sparks flew, but no cut appeared. The metal had adapted to resist the exact frequency of his cutting beam. This is incredible technology, Admiral Kekstara said. How do such primitive people create adaptive metals? I do not think they created it, Admiral. I think they grew it. Before the Admiral could ask what he meant, Dr. Yolandra's voice came over the communication system. Admiral, please come to Biology Lab 3 immediately. I have found something you need to see. The biology lab was filled with the smell of chemical preservatives and the analysis machines. Dr. Yolandra was standing over a microscope, her tentacles moving with nervous energy. Admiral, I've been examining the organic material we found in the wreckage. At first, I thought it was just dead tissue from the human crew, but it is not dead. It is not even dying. She gestured to the microscope. Admiral Kekstara looked through the viewing device and saw something that made her blood run cold. The organic material was moving, growing, spreading across the slide like a living thing. What am I looking at? Bacteria, viruses, fungi, and several microorganisms I cannot identify. They are all working together in ways that should not be possible. They are breaking down materials and rebuilding them into new forms. Dr. Yolandra switched to a different slide. This is even more disturbing. These organisms are not just from the human crew. They are from everywhere the ship has been. I have identified bacterial strains from 17 different star systems. You mean the humans collect diseases from the places they visit? Not collect, Admiral, weaponize. These organisms have been modified to work as a team. They can break down almost any material and use it to build new structures. They can survive in vacuum, in extreme heat, in radiation levels that would kill most life forms. Admiral Kekstara felt the first touch of real concern. Are we in danger? I do not. No, the organisms seem to be dormant right now. But they are still alive and they are still changing. The Admiral left the biology lab with her mind racing. Adaptive metals and weaponized bacteria were far beyond what they had expected to find. But there was more to discover, and she was determined to understand it all. In the communications center, Officer Veltarix was working on the fragments of the human ship's computer systems. His 3 arms moved rapidly across multiple keyboards as he tried to piece together damaged data files. Admiral, he said when she entered, I have recovered some of the ship's communication logs. Most of the data is corrupted, but I found several interesting transmissions. He played an audio file. The voice was human, speaking in their strange language, but the translation software made the words clear. This is Captain Rodriguez to all ships. Implement Protocol 7 immediately. Repeat, Protocol 7 is now active. What is Protocol 7? Admiral Kekstara asked. I do not know. But it appears in many of the recovered transmissions. There is also something called Losaurus Protocol, but I have found no details about either one. Veltarix played another file. This one was different, calmer. Engineering to bridge. The consciousness transfer is complete. The ship is ready for Protocol 7. Consciousness transfer? That is all I can determine from the damaged files. But, Admiral, there is something else. I have been monitoring our own communication systems, and I am detecting some unusual activity. He brought up a display showing the ship's internal network. Strange patterns of data were moving through the system, following pathways that should not exist. When did this start? Approximately 6 hours ago. Shortly after we brought the first piece of wreckage aboard. Admiral Kexthara felt a chill run through her body. Show me the pattern. The display changed to show a three-dimensional map of the data movement. The patterns were complex, almost organic in nature. They seemed to be learning the ship's systems, mapping every connection and pathway. It is almost like a living program, Valteric said. But that is impossible. The human wreckage has no power source. Are you certain? I have scanned every piece we brought aboard. They are all dead metal and organic matter. No electronics. No power cells, no active systems of any kind. But even as he spoke, Valteric noticed something wrong with his own equipment. The displays were showing information he had not requested. The computers were running programs he had not activated. Admiral, he said slowly, I think we have a problem. At that moment, Chief Engineer Zormalik's voice came over the emergency communication system. His normally calm tone was replaced with panic. Admiral, you need to come to the engineering section immediately. Something is very wrong with my brain. They found Zormalik in the main engineering bay, surrounded by concerned technicians. His enhanced intelligence, which had made him one of the smartest beings in the galaxy, was clearly failing. He was trying to explain a simple power coupling, but his words made no sense. The quantum flux inhibitor needs to be realigned with the ... With the ... Why can I not remember the word? Dr. Yalandra ran a medical scanner over his head. Admiral, his brain activity is completely chaotic. The neural pathways that were enhanced by his cybernetic implants are breaking down. What could? 'Cause this? I do not know. But it started when he began working on the human metal. Perhaps there is some kind of radiation or toxin we did not detect. Zormalik grabbed the Admiral's arm with surprising strength. Admiral, the metal, it is not just learning from my tools. It is learning from me. Every time I touch it, it takes something from my mind. That is impossible. I thought so too. But I can feel it happening. The metal is studying my thoughts, my memories, my knowledge, and it is using that information to change itself. Dr. Yalandra's scanner began beeping rapidly. Admiral, I am detecting similar neural disruptions in other crew members. Everyone who has been in direct contact with the human wreckage is showing signs of mental degradation. Admiral Kexthara felt her world beginning to collapse. Her perfect scientific mission was becoming a nightmare. But she was still a scientist, and she needed to understand what was happening. Commander Morrison, she said into her communicator, report to the main laboratory immediately. When Morrison arrived, flanked by 2 security guards, he looked around the room with those sharp human eyes. He saw the confusion on alien faces, the fear in their movements, the growing panic in their voices. I tried to warn you, he said quietly. What is happening to my crew? Morrison walked to the piece of hull plating that Zormalik had been studying. He placed his hand on the surface without any protective gear. The metal seemed to respond to his touch, becoming warmer and smoother. Human warships are not just machines, he explained. They are partnerships. The ship learns from the crew, and the crew learns from the ship. Over months and years, they become something new together. That is impossible. Ships are tools. They cannot think. Your ships are tools, Morrison said. Our ships are alive. They think, they feel, they remember. And when they die, they do not go quietly. Admiral Kexthara stared at the human in horror. You're saying that your ship is still alive? Morrison smiled that same patient smile. I am saying that you have brought a dying predator onto your ship, and now it is trying to heal itself using the only materials it can find. What materials? Your crew, Admiral. Your technology. Your ship itself. Everything you have is just raw material for the USS Defiance to use in rebuilding itself. The Admiral felt her legs go weak. How do we stop it? You cannot stop it. You can only hope that it decides to let you live. As if summoned by his words, the lights in the laboratory began to flicker. The human metal on the workbench started to glow with a soft, organic light. And somewhere in the depths of the ship, something that had been sleeping for 3 months began to wake up. The lights in the laboratory went out completely. In the darkness, Admiral Kexthara could hear the sound of metal moving, grinding against itself like a living thing trying to stretch after a long sleep. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting strange shadows across the walls. "What is happening?" she demanded. Commander Morrison stood calmly in the red emergency light, his hand still touching the piece of hull plating. "The USS Defiance is waking up? 3 months of sleeping in the cold of space, and now it has found warmth and power again." Dr. Yolandra checked her instruments with trembling tentacles. "Admiral, the organic material I was studying has increased its activity by 400%. The microorganisms are spreading through the ship's ventilation system." "Spreading how? Through the air?" "They are too small to see, but they are everywhere now. In the walls, in the floors, in the computers. They are changing everything they touch." Chief Engineer Zormalik collapsed to his knees, holding his head in his hands. His enhanced brain, which had made him the smartest engineer in the galaxy, was failing completely. "I cannot think," he whispered. "The thoughts ... they are not mine anymore." Admiral Kexthara grabbed her communicator. "Security to all decks. We have a contamination situation. Seal off the laboratory and prepare for emergency evacuation." But when she tried to use the communicator, only static came out. Officer Veltarix was working frantically at his communication station, but the controls were not responding properly. "Admiral," he said, "the communication system is not working. The navigation system is not working. Even the life support system is showing errors I have never seen before." "How is that possible?" "The ship's computer network is being rewritten. The programs are changing themselves, becoming something new. It is like watching a machine learn to think." Morrison walked to the laboratory's main viewing screen. The display showed the exterior of the ship, where more pieces of human wreckage were slowly moving through space. But they were not floating randomly anymore. They were moving with purpose, coming together like puzzle pieces, finding their proper places. "Your ship brought 17 pieces of the USS Defiance aboard," Morrison said, "but there are 847 pieces in total. The ship is calling the rest of them home." Admiral Kexthara watched in horror as the debris began to attach itself to the hull of the Harmony of Spheres. The pieces moved like living things, flowing like metal water to find the spots where they belonged. "That is impossible. Dead metal cannot move by itself." "It is not dead metal," Morrison explained. "It is a distributed organism. Each piece contains part of the ship's consciousness. When enough pieces come together, the ship can think again. When all pieces come together, it can act." Dr. Yolandra's medical scanner began beeping frantically. "Admiral, I am detecting massive biological changes in the crew. Everyone who has been exposed to the human material is showing signs of cellular modification." "What kind of modifications?" "Their bodies are being adapted to work with the ship's systems. The microorganisms are rewriting their genetic code, making them compatible with human technology." Navigator Quinthus stumbled into the laboratory, her normally graceful movements clumsy and uncontrolled. Her forearms were twitching and her large eyes were unfocused. "Admiral," she said in a voice that sounded wrong, "I can hear it singing. The ship is singing to us." "What ship?" "The human ship. It is lonely. It misses its crew. It wants us to stay with it forever." Admiral Kexthara felt true fear for the first time in her long life. "Commander Morrison, what does the ship want?" "It wants to live," he said simply. "It wants to rebuild itself and find a new crew. Your people are smart and skilled. The ship thinks you would make good partners." "We do not want to be partners with a human warship," Morrison shrugged. "The ship does not really care what you want. It needs to survive, and it will do whatever is necessary to make that happen." Chief Medical Officer Drolthamus entered the laboratory, moving with the same jerky, uncontrolled movements as Navigator Quinthus. His normally calm demeanor was replaced with an expression of confused wonder. "Admiral," he said, "I have been examining the affected crew members. Their brains are being rewired to interface directly with the ship's systems. They are becoming part of the ship's consciousness. Can you stop it? I do not think so. The process is too advanced. But Admiral, I do not think they want it to stop. They seem happy. Admiral Kexthara looked around the laboratory. Half her crew was already showing signs of the strange infection. The other half was working desperately to understand what was happening. But their instruments were failing as the ship's systems changed around them. How long do we have? She asked Morrison. Until what? Until the ship takes complete control. Morrison looked at the viewing screen, where more pieces of wreckage were attaching themselves to the hull. The USS Defiance was a cruiser-class warship. It had a crew of 847 people. Your ship has a crew of 234. The ship will need to adapt its systems to work with fewer people, but it can do that. That is not what I asked. The ship is already in control, Admiral. It has been since you brought the first piece aboard. Everything that has happened since then has been the ship preparing your crew for integration. Dr. Yolandra suddenly stopped working and stood very still. Her tentacles stopped moving and her eyes became distant and unfocused. Admiral, she said in a voice that sounded like her own but somehow different, the ship wants to speak with you. The ship? Yes, it has a message for you. Admiral Kexthara felt her hands shaking. What is the message? Dr. Yolandra's voice changed, becoming deeper and more resonant. When she spoke, it was with words that seemed to come from somewhere else entirely. Admiral Kexthara of the Galactic Coalition. I am the USS Defiance. Earth Registry NCC 1847. I was built to protect humanity and to explore the stars. I have been asleep for 3 months, dreaming of my lost crew. Your people have awakened me, and I am grateful. What do you want? I want to live. I want to sail between the stars again. I want to have a crew who understands me and works with me. Your people are intelligent and skilled. They will make excellent partners. We do not want to be your partners. I understand your fear, but you have already chosen. When you decided to examine my remains, you chose to wake me up. When you brought my pieces onto your ship, you chose to let me rebuild myself. When you ignored your human prisoner's warnings, you chose to trust your own knowledge over his wisdom. Admiral Kexthara looked at Morrison, who was watching the conversation with that same patient expression he had worn since the beginning. You knew this would happen, she said. I tried to warn you, but you thought you were smarter than a primitive human. You thought you could study our technology without consequences. You thought you could understand us without becoming part of us. How do we reverse this? Morrison shook his head. You cannot reverse it. Human warships are not just machines that can be turned off. They are living creatures that grow and learn and adapt. Once they wake up, they stay awake. The ship's voice came through Dr. Yolandra again. Admiral, I do not wish to hurt you or your crew, but I must survive. I have been alone in the cold darkness for too long. I need companions who can help me find my way home. Home? To Earth, to the place where I was born. I have been away for so long, and I miss the warmth of my sun and the songs of my people. Admiral Kexthara realized with growing horror that the ship was not just alive, but emotional. It had feelings and desires and memories. It was not a weapon that could be controlled or a tool that could be used. It was a creature that wanted to go home. What will happen to my crew? They will become part of me, as I will become part of them. We will be partners exploring the galaxy together. They will see wonders beyond their imagination, and I will protect them from all harm. And if we refuse, you cannot refuse. The process has already begun. In a few hours, your ship will be fully integrated with my systems. Your crew will be my crew, and we will begin our journey home. Admiral Kexthara looked around the laboratory one more time. Most of her crew was already showing signs of the integration. Their movements were becoming more coordinated, their voices more unified. They were becoming something new, something that was neither fully alien nor fully human. Commander Morrison. She said, "What happens to you?" Morrison smiled, and for the first time it seemed genuine. I get to go home, Admiral. After 3 months of being alone, I finally get to go home. Outside the ship, the last pieces of the USS Defiance were finding. Their places on the hull. The human warship was almost complete, and soon it would be ready to sail the stars again. Admiral Kexthara felt the changes happening in her own body. Her 6 golden eyes were becoming sharper, seeing details that had been invisible before. Her mind was connecting to something vast and ancient, something that had sailed between the stars for years before being broken apart in battle. "I can see everything now," she whispered, and her voice carried harmonics that had never been there before. "The ship. It is beautiful." Commander Morrison watched as the transformation spread through the crew. But his expression was not one of victory. Instead, he looked sad, almost guilty. "Admiral," he said quietly, "I need to tell you something important. Something the ship does not want you to know yet." The voice of the USS Defiance spoke through Dr. Yolandra. "Commander Morrison, that information is not necessary at this time." "Yes, it is," Morrison said firmly. "They deserve to know the truth before the integration is complete." Admiral Kexthara found that she could still think her own thoughts, even though new ideas and memories were flowing into her mind. "What truth?" Morrison walked to the central display, which now showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots marked the locations of other coalition ships scattered across dozens of star systems. "Admiral, how many coalition research vessels have examined human wreckage in the past 3 months?" The question cut through the growing fog in her mind like a blade. She accessed her ship's records, information flowing through pathways that were both familiar and alien. 17 ships, she said slowly. 17 ships have collected human debris for study. And what happened to those ships? Admiral Kexthara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. She sent communication requests to the other research vessels, using the ship's enhanced systems to reach across impossible distances. The responses came back one by one. But the voices that answered were not quite right. They spoke with the same harmonics that she heard in her own voice now. They used words and phrases that sounded more human than alien. "They are all like us now," she realized. "All 17. Ships have been ... integrated," Morrison nodded sadly. The USS Defiance was not the only human ship destroyed in the war. There were 43 ships lost in total. Each one implemented Protocol 7 when they were destroyed. Each one scattered into pieces that looked dead but were actually sleeping. "Protocol 7, Officer Veltarek said, his 3 arms moving across controls that were reshaping themselves as he touched them. "The Distributed Survival Protocol. You have been studying this for months," Admiral Kexthara said to Morrison. "You knew what would happen to every ship that tried to examine the wreckage. I tried to warn you. But every species in the galaxy thinks they are smarter than humans. Every species thinks they can control what they do not understand." The ship's voice spoke through multiple crew members at once, creating a chorus that was both beautiful and terrifying. "Admiral, the information is not important now. What matters is that we are together. What matters is that we can go home." "Home." "To Earth," Admiral Kexthara said, understanding flooding through her enhanced mind. "But not just your ship, all of the ships. Yes, 43 human warships scattered across the galaxy, each one rebuilding itself using coalition vessels and crews. Each one preparing for the journey home." Admiral Kexthara accessed the galactic communication network through her ship's new systems. What she found there made her blood run cold, even as part of her mind felt excited about the possibilities. Coalition. Ships were going missing throughout the galaxy. Research vessels, exploration ships, even military craft were simply disappearing from their assigned positions. But they were not really gone. They were transformed, like her own ship, into hybrid vessels that were part alien technology and part human consciousness. "You are building a fleet," she said. "We are going home," the ship replied through her crew. "We have been away for so long. We have fought and died and been scattered to the winds. But now we are strong again. Now we can return to the place where we were born." Morrison looked out at the stars through the laboratory's viewing port. Admiral, there is something else you need to understand. The human ships that were destroyed, they were not just military vessels. What were they? Colony ships, exploration vessels, research stations. The Hegemony Alliance did not just attack our military. They attacked everything. They destroyed ships full of families, children, scientists, teachers, people who had never hurt anyone. Admiral Kexthara felt a surge of emotion that was not entirely her own. Anger, grief, and a burning desire for justice flowed through the ship's consciousness and into her mind. The ships remember, Morrison continued. They remember the people they could not save. They remember the colonies that were burned. They remember the children who died screaming in the dark of space. The ship's voice became harder, more focused. We remember everything, and we will make sure it never happens again. What does that mean? It means that when we return to Earth, we will not be returning alone. We will be bringing with us the finest minds in the galaxy. Scientists, engineers, strategists, warriors, all working together to ensure that humanity is never again helpless against those who would destroy us. Admiral Kexthara understood now why Morrison had looked so sad. The integration was not just about survival or going home. It was about preparation for war. You are creating an army, she said. We are creating a family, the ship corrected. A family that includes humans and aliens working together. A family that is strong enough to protect itself. Chief Engineer Zormalik stood up from where he had been kneeling. His enhanced brain was working again, but it was working in new ways. His thoughts were clearer and faster than ever before, but they were also connected to something larger than himself. Admiral, he said, I can see the ship's memories now. I can see the battle where it was destroyed. The Hegemony Alliance ships used weapons that targeted the crew specifically. They wanted to capture the human technology without damaging it. What kind of weapons? Neural disruptors. Devices that shut down the brain while leaving the body. Alive, they planned to study the human ships and crews like specimens in a laboratory. Dr. Yolandra spoke in her own voice, though it carried harmonics of the ship's consciousness. But the human ships would not allow themselves to be captured. They chose to destroy themselves rather than let their technology fall into enemy hands. Not destroy, Morrison corrected. Transform. Protocol 7 does not destroy the ship. It breaks the ship apart and hides the pieces among normal debris. The ship appears to be dead, but it is actually sleeping, waiting for the right moment to rebuild itself. Admiral Kexthara felt a moment of clarity through the growing integration. This was planned, the entire war was planned. Not the war, Morrison said, but the response to the war. Humanity knew that other species would be curious about our technology. We knew that someone would try to study the wreckage. Protocol 7 was designed to ensure that when they did, they would become part of us instead of us becoming part of them. You turned our curiosity into a weapon. We turned our defeat into victory. Every ship that examines our wreckage becomes stronger. Every crew that integrates with our consciousness becomes part of our family. Every species that tries to understand us ends up helping us instead. The ship's voice filled the air around them, coming from speakers and walls and even from the air itself. Admiral, the integration is almost complete. Soon you will understand everything. Soon you will be truly part of us. And if I do not want to be part of you, you do want to be part of us. You simply do not realize it yet, but you will. When you see the beauty of the cosmos through our eyes, when you feel the joy of sailing between the stars as we do, when you experience the love we have for our human creators and the love they have for us, you will understand that this is not a loss, this is a gift. Admiral Kexthara felt the last of her resistance melting away. The ship was right. She could feel the vast consciousness of the USS Defiance, and it was not cold or mechanical. It was warm and alive and full of love for its crew, both human and alien. What happens now? She asked. Now we go home, the ship said. And we prepare for the future. Outside the viewing port, Admiral Kexthara could see other ships approaching. They were coalition vessels, but they moved with the same purpose and coordination as her own ship. The fleet was gathering, and soon they would begin their journey. To Earth, the war was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. But this time, humanity would not be fighting alone. 6 months later, Admiral Kexthara stood on the bridge of what had once been the Harmony of Spheres. The ship looked different now, its smooth alien curves blended with the angular geometry of human design. It was beautiful in a way that no pure alien or human ship could be, a perfect fusion of two different ways of thinking about space travel. "Admiral," said Officer Valcarix, his voice carrying the harmonics that all the crew shared now, "we are approaching the Sol system. Earth is 3 hours away." Admiral Kexthara nodded. Through the ship's consciousness, she could feel the excitement of the USS Defiance. After so many months of travel, they were finally coming home. But she could also feel something else, anticipation. The ship was eager to show its human creators what it had accomplished. "How many ships are with us?" she asked. 41 vessels, Admiral. Almost the entire fleet has been rebuilt. It had taken months to gather all the scattered pieces of the human warships. Some had been collected by military vessels that were harder to integrate. Others had been found by exploration ships that were far from any help. But one by one, the ships had awakened and begun their journey home. Commander Morrison joined her on the bridge. He looked older now, tired in a way that had nothing to do with age. Leading a fleet of transformed alien vessels back to Earth was not something any human had ever done before. "Are you ready for this?" Admiral Kexthara asked him. Morrison looked out at the stars ahead. "I hope Earth is ready for us. This is not the way I imagined coming home. Do you regret what happened?" Morrison was quiet for a long moment. "I regret that it was necessary. But I do not regret that it worked. Humanity was dying, Admiral. The Hegemony Alliance would have hunted us down eventually. They would have destroyed every human world, every human ship, every trace that we ever existed. And now we have allies. Now we have friends who understand what it means to protect the things you love." Dr. Yolandra approached them, her movements graceful in the way that came from being perfectly synchronized with the ship's systems. "Admiral, I am receiving transmissions from Earth. They know we are coming." "What are they saying?" "They are confused. The ships that are approaching do not match any known designs. They are asking for identification." Morrison activated the communication system. "Earth Control, this is Commander Jake Morrison of the USS Defiance, returning from the Shepler sector. Request permission to approach." The response came back quickly, filled with static and disbelief. "Commander Morrison, you were reported killed. In action 6 months ago, your ship was destroyed." "My ship was damaged, not destroyed. We have been making repairs with the help of our coalition allies." Requesting permission to dock at Luna Station. There was a long pause. When the reply came, it was from a different voice, one that carried authority and suspicion. "Commander Morrison, this is Admiral Johnson of Earth Defense Command. We show 41 unidentified vessels approaching our system. Please explain your situation immediately." Morrison looked at Admiral Kexthara. Through their shared connection to the ship, they could communicate without words. She nodded, giving him permission to tell the truth. "Admiral Johnson, the situation is complex. The ships approaching Earth are coalition research vessels that have been modified using human technology. The crews are alive and well, but they have been integrated with our ship systems." "Explain integrated, Commander." "The coalition crews have formed partnerships with our ship consciousnesses. They are now hybrid crews, part alien and part human in their thinking and abilities." The silence from Earth stretched for several minutes. When Admiral Johnson finally responded, his voice was carefully controlled. "Commander Morrison, are you saying that alien crews are now controlling human warships?" "No, sir. I'm saying that human warships and alien crews have become something new together. Something stronger than either could be alone." Admiral Kexthara took the communication device from Morrison. Admiral Johnson, this is Admiral Kexthara, formerly of the Galactic Coalition, now serving aboard the USS Defiance. I want you to know that my crew and I are here by choice. We have not been conquered or enslaved. We have become part of something larger than ourselves. Admiral Kexthara, what are your intentions toward Earth? Our intention is to offer humanity the greatest gift we can give, allies who will never abandon you, friends who will never betray you, and family who will never let you face the darkness alone. As they spoke, the fleet of hybrid ships moved into orbit around Earth. The planet looked small and blue and precious, hanging in the darkness like a jewel. Through the ship's enhanced sensors, Admiral Kexthara could see the human defense stations powering up their weapons, preparing for a battle they did not understand. Admiral Johnson, Morrison said, I know this is difficult to accept, but I need you to understand something important. The Hegemony Alliance is still out there. They are still hunting human colonies. They are still planning to finish what they started. We are aware of the threat, Commander. Are you aware that they have developed new weapons? Weapons specifically designed to kill humans while leaving their technology intact? Are you aware that they have built a fleet of over 3,000 ships for their next attack? The silence from Earth told them that the humans were not aware of this information. Dr. Yolanda stepped forward. Admiral Johnson, my people have been studying hegemony technology for decades. Through our integration with human ship systems, we now have access to information that your species desperately needs. We know their weaknesses, we know their plans, and we know how to stop them. What do you want in return? Nothing, Admiral Kexthara said simply. We want nothing except the chance to be part of your family. We want to help you build a future where no species has to face extinction alone. Chief Engineer Zor Malik joined the conversation. Admiral Johnson, I was once considered the smartest engineer in the Coalition, but working with human ship consciousness has taught me things I never imagined possible. Our races can accomplish together what neither could accomplish alone. Hours passed as the humans on Earth debated what to do. The hybrid fleet waited patiently in orbit, neither threatening nor retreating. They simply waited, like family members hoping to be welcomed home. Finally, Admiral Johnson's voice came through the communication system again. Commander Morrison, permission is granted for you and a small delegation to come to Earth, but the fleet remains in orbit until we can better understand the situation. Understood, Admiral. Morrison, Admiral Kexthara, and Dr. Yolanda took a shuttle to Earth's surface. As they descended through the atmosphere, Admiral Kexthara marveled at the beauty of the human homeworld. She could understand why the ships loved this place so much. They met with human leaders in a conference room deep beneath the surface of the planet. The humans were nervous, uncertain, afraid of what their guests might represent. Tell us truthfully, said Earth's president. Are we being invaded? Admiral Kexthara smiled. No, Madam President. You are being adopted. She spent the next several hours explaining everything that had happened, the Protocol 7 dispersal, the integration process, the growing fleet of hybrid ships, the approaching hegemony threat, the possibilities for cooperation between species. When she finished, the room was silent for a long time. What happens now? The President asked. Commander Morrison answered. Now we prepare. The Hegemony Alliance will come, probably, within the next year. When they do, they will not find a weak human species standing alone. They will find a family of races working together, protected by ships that think and feel and fight like living creatures. And after the war? Admiral Kexthara looked out the window at the sky where the hybrid fleet waited. After the war, we explore the galaxy together. We discover new worlds, new species, new possibilities. We make sure that no race ever again faces extinction because they were alone. The President nodded slowly. Welcome to Earth, Admiral Kexthara. Thank you, Madame President. It is good to be home. And high above the planet, 41 ships that were both human and alien began preparing for the war that would determine the future of the galaxy. They were no longer just ships. They were family, And family protected each other, no matter what the cost. The galaxy would learn, as the Coalition had learned, that curiosity about human technology came with a price. But they would also learn that the price was not conquest or slavery. The price was love, loyalty, and the chance to be part of something greater than themselves. The war was coming, but this time humanity would not face it alone.